Welcome to Uncopyable Women in Business. I'm Kay Miller, also known as Muffler Mama. I've been the #1 salesperson in a male-dominated industry, a successful entrepreneur for over 30 years, and now my mission is to help you build a business and brand nobody else can compete with. If you're ready to break out of the pack and create your own uncopyable advantage, stay tuned. My guests and I are here to help. Today, I'm excited to welcome Noelle Jae Robinson, founder of The Sound Spa. She began her career as a teacher and made a bold pivot into sound therapy, helping people regulate their nervous systems and reduce stress through immersive sound. Today, we'll talk about her transition into entrepreneurship, what sound therapy really does, and the lessons she learned building a business around her passion. Noelle, welcome to the Uncopyable Women in Business podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kay. I appreciate it. It's excited to be here.
This is a fascinating topic that I think our listeners might not know about, but as we were talking about just now, might have a huge need for it. So I'd like to just have you bring us up to speed where you started teaching and then how you transitioned into building a business around sound therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, I was a teacher before. I was a public school teacher. I taught through COVID. So I taught for 10 years. And I will say just COVID changed things. COVID changed people, it changed the world, and it really changed the education system. And it was really rough. I would say 2020 was a really difficult year to teach through. But interestingly enough, 2021 was even harder. I really noticed that people were struggling with trauma and with anxiety, the level of anxiety. My student suicide ideation had gone up a lot. And way before COVID, I had been really trying to, learn more about like emotional growth and mindfulness and mindset. And I'd really been trying to incorporate that into my classroom for a long time. And I realized during COVID that these kids needed it even more. And so I really kind of went to my admin and I was just like, we have so much opportunity here. These kids need safety. They need belonging, and everyone was so focused on catch them up, catch them up. They're behind, test. And I just couldn't. And I was like, these kids, they're struggling. And we fell into this narrative that, teachers, and the pressure was on the teachers to make the kids feel safe and to do all the things, the mindfulness and the learning. And so that just very quickly led me on. Like within days, I told my husband, I was like, hey, I think I want to quit teaching. And that was really shocking. I had never said that before. I mean, I had been through some really tough years and had still stuck with it. I gave my health away for my career for 10 years. I racked up all of these different diagnoses. And in my healing journey, I realized that teaching just wasn't a part of that for me to continue to heal. At this point, I'd already found sound. I'd already healed fibromyalgia. I had healed my ADHD. I'd healed so much in my body that I think my vision towards, just my situation was just different. And so, yeah, and as we were talking, he's like, oh yeah, you're not thinking about this. Like you've already decided. And I was like, yeah, I think so. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know where this leads me. So I just was like, if God put this in my heart, then I'm going to trust that God's going to show me what to do with this. But I feel really strong about this. And so I put in my notice. I gave my resignation in October. I decided in October, put my resignation in November of that year. And I did decide, decided to finish the school year with my contract because that's the right thing to do for my students. And yeah, and I had no idea what I was going to do. I wish I could say, like, I didn't leave teaching to go play a gong. That wasn't my intention. My intention was to help people more than what I was doing in my classroom. I felt like I was stressing kids out and I just wanted to help de-stress and help our society, our community that I love so much. And I just wanted to find a better way. And then, things just progressed from there. So I guess, for me, what really, I guess it was just taking that first step, right? And then that opened up now that I had no choice. I had to figure out what was next. And so I did. But I never would have thought that the sound spa would be it, to be honest. I wish I could say that I left teaching with this grand plan to start the sound spa, but I didn't.
But meanwhile, you'd already discovered something that worked for you, and we want to hear more about what exactly that is, that it helped you. And I think that is a good way to think about a business. If it's something that really has helped you, you'd like to share it with others. So tell me more about what the sound therapy is.
So sound therapy is the therapeutic sounds. It can be, music therapy is a form of sound therapy. Music therapy has been practiced, in clinical settings for a long time. So music therapy, there's degrees in it. We had music therapy in, the special education classrooms that I worked in at one point in my career. So any type of therapeutic use of sounds would be considered sound therapy. What I particularly do is what I would call is like the mainstream-ish sound therapy now. And it's just using gongs and crystal bowls and, different, what might be considered almost tribal instruments, like instruments that have been used for centuries. And we're now using that and realizing that there was so much wisdom in how our ancestors used these instruments. And these instruments are just such powerful vibrations that they really regulate the nervous system. And I always say, for a lot of people who've never tried this is a big step, right? This walking into my studio, I'm so proud of everyone who walks into my studio because I wouldn't have been that person. I was not adventurous. I am not on the forefront. I am not naturally that person. I am naturally actually very conservative, very reserved. I usually need to see a bunch of people try something before I'm going to try it. But I had just gotten to a point in my life where I was so desperate. I had started my career, 24-ish? And every year between 23 and 29, I was just racking up diagnoses. I went from, I've always had ADHD. And so I was highly medicated on Adderall for that. And then I took Wellbutrin because the Adderall wasn't enough. And then I had plantar fasciitis, and then I got some autoimmune issues, and they couldn't figure out what it was. And then I had a really big neural issue that happened, and I was in and out of the hospitals for a few years, and I had to wear a patch for a while. They thought I had MS, so I got all of the tests. I got all of the MRIs. I got a spinal tap. I had needles put all through my body to test my muscles and how they worked, and they ruled everything out. So I didn't have MS, I didn't have myasthenia gravis, I didn't have Graves' disease, and all these things that were very serious. And I was so thankful to not have them, but I wanted answers. And I was just so frustrated. My body was just breaking down. And I finally turned to, well, what is my immune system? If I have this autoimmune disease, if you can't, there was a big event that happened. It was very scary for me. And I finally got down on my hands and knees, and I was just like, God, I will do the things. Just help me survive this. I will take better care of myself. I promise I'll figure this out. And I started learning about the immune system and how our body works and why autoimmune happens. And I started going on this health journey. And and I was still teaching at the time. That this was 2019, 2020. And it was quite fascinating when I realized no one asked me about my stress.
We talked about that right before we started. So,
yeah.
Yes, all of us in business, in life, COVID, social media, all of this stuff, we are all really stressed. Sounds like you got to the point where you had no choice. Really, you had no choice. Nothing was working. So
I had no choice. I had 3 kids and I could barely walk. It was bad. I mean, at 31 years old, my husband thought I was going to be in a wheelchair within the next 5 years. I mean, it was bad. And I realized no one asked me about my stress. Nobody asked me about, how my marriage was doing. Nobody asked me about my childhood or, those types of things, how I was doing emotionally. And I started learning about how your emotions are really impacted. And so I just was going on a journey, and I just happened to go to a yoga retreat, and they just happened to have a sound person. And she's playing this gong. And I'll tell you, the experience itself was fine. It was fine. But it was like nothing that I would have written home and been like, oh my God, that was amazing. But the next day I woke up and I could feel that my body had healed, that like I slept so deep that night. And as someone who's had insomnia for 8 years, who has chronic pain, like I was like shocked. And then so I went to her and I was like, what is this voodoo, and how do I get more? And so it really was it was hard to find back then. It's a lot more common now, but basically I just started finding every gong and crystal bowl I could, anybody that was playing them. And I found my own sound healer who, practiced out of her house. So I went to her as much as I could. I went to sound baths as much as I could. And then within 3 or 4 months, I was off all my medication. So literally, I'd been on Adderall for 20 years at that point, maybe, or no, maybe 50. I don't know. My math isn't mathing at the moment. It was a long time, as long as I remember. And so when I got off of that, so my chronic pain was gone, ADHD gone. I'm functioning better than I ever have, feeling great, super energized, sleeping great. I mean, within months, it was crazy. And then my husband, when he found out, in the whole time, he was kind of like, you do you. But it was amazing when he found out that I stopped taking Adderall. He was like, wait, what? Because I told him like a week or two after I stopped taking it. I didn't even tell him immediately. And he just was like floored because he had seen me without medication and it was not pretty. So he knew what I was like when I was pregnant and how to not take medication. It was not good. And so he started doing it. And we have 3 kids. So we're like almost fighting over like who gets to go to these events because one of us has to stay home and like take care of the kids. And so we're just trying to do this. And so we bought a gong. Like he bought a gong for Christmas just to play for us. It was nothing else other than that, just to play for him because it helped his anxiety. So that's kind of where it all began.
I'd like to have you describe what is the experience of being in one of your sessions or whatever, because it's more than sound, like you said, right? It's vibration.
Yeah. So there's, vibrations that you can hear, and then there's vibrations that you don't hear as well. The picture that I have up here, you can kind of see if anyone's watching, I don't know. But anyways, that our studio actually looks different now. So in my studio in particular, we use 7 gongs. We have a wide range of crystal bowls and Tibetan bowls, but basically all of our instruments create vibration, and they create a vibration at a wide range of frequencies, wide range of notes. What I love about the gongs, so the gongs are my favorite instrument because the vibration that they create is so big. You can feel it, right? It is traveling through your body. People feel it, in their stomach and their arms. I mean, in the craziest ways. You can, if you are standing around a gong and it's being played, like you can feel it in your body so well. And the great thing about the gong is that it produces a wide range of notes and a wide range of frequencies. So its harmonics are really beautiful. The way that it creates harmonics, the harmonious vibrations are really where healing is created, right? Because you can create dissonance with vibrations, it has its place in the human body. It impacts the human body, but in more of a shaking up way. Dissonance is more feels a little rowdy sometimes for the nervous system, right? So you need to have harmony. You need to have harmonious because our bodies, we've been exposed to music for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, right? Hundreds of thousands of years. So our cells, know vibration. Our cells are aware, our nervous system, we have receptors all over our body that are aware of the vibration around us. And most of the time, the vibration around us right now, it's it's not good, right? We have Wi-Fi, we have electricity, we have all these very foreign vibrations that our body is surrounded by all the time.
Hey there. I've got something for you that can change the way people see you and your business. It's my checklist of 25 uncopyable actions. Grab your checklist at beuncopyable.com/K-checklist. Now, back to the show. Say, it looks like in your studio that you have, it's a class where there are multiple people, and these gongs, from what I see behind you, are big. And I'm sure that's important to have like that deep resonant sound. So what is it, an experience of just what it would be like to be in your class?
So coming into my class as a first-time person, we're really committed to helping first-time people feel comfortable. So we have a whole process where we explain exactly what you're going to experience, the order, kind of like what we're going to experience, so that you can kind of relax a little bit more. We provide all of the blankets, the pillows. We provide comforters for behind your legs, props to make people super comfy. And then we have these really comfortable mats. We also have chairs for those who can't lay down. And so we provide everything. We want it to be a really luxe experience, because when we were doing it, my husband and I, you were laying on a yoga mat on the floor. And my husband's like, I can't do that. So the idea of our mats, I'm just going to tell you the little behind the scenes, how this stuff evolves. Behind the scenes of the mats, that wouldn't have been a thing if it wasn't for my husband and I went to an 8-hour-long gong puja one time. It was an overnight. It was 8 hours. And my husband's like, I am not sleeping on the floor. He's like, I'm just not. And I love that for him, but I'm not that person. I'm like, it'll be fine, And he's like, no, I'm not doing it. So he's like, I'm taking this huge cushion from we had this old couch that had like a lounger. And he's like, I'm going to take this with me. And I was like, well, then what am I going to take? So he carried in the middle of the winter, this huge couch cushion. And then he carried in my son's mattress pad for me. And that's what we laid on. And everyone was like, oh my God, that's such a great idea. And had never seen anyone lay on cushions before. And then after that experience, my husband goes, I will never go back to the yoga mat. He's like, we will always have cushions. So when we decided to do this, he was like, we have to find cushions. We cannot have people on yoga mats. And so it was hard. And now these cushions are becoming more popular because, I don't know, maybe us, I don't know. But but at the time there was nothing. I would like search online. And so I think the evolution of the sound spa from an entrepreneurial standpoint is we took what we liked and what we didn't like about going to sound baths, and we created our business for what we wish we would have had from the very beginning. What it was like when our friends came and we would invite a friend and they had no idea, and they were just like, it was so hard for them to get settled in, and it was so uncomfortable for them because they didn't know what to expect. So then we made sure that people knew what to expect. We took all of those micro moments and learned from them and created the business that we have today.
Well, and I know you do have ways for people to plug into what you offer. You have an app right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do. So we realized that, just providing, depending on, some people's schedules just can't come in all the time. Ideally, in an ideal world, you're coming in 2 to 3 times a week because that vibration is so profound. But even with that, right, you're being exposed to all kinds of things. So we created a meditation app. It has different like meditations, different affirmation recordings. It has different what would be like courses, but they're more like health experiences.
So how do people find the app?
Yes, you can find our app at thesoundspa.com/app, APP. And that will give you a direct link to our digital membership, which includes all of the meditations and the experiences. And we're currently working on adding more sound recordings. So we have a few actual full sound session recordings on there, and we'll be adding more over the next few months. Well, probably for the next few years, but we're just constantly adding and adding to our app.
And as you said, we are so stressed out right now. Life is stressful. And I'm sure starting a business was stressful. So, have you been calm and cool, calm, and collected this whole time? Or have you been like, oh my God, what am I doing? How does it feel to start your own business like this?
It feels like chaos. Even in a calm business, I still have all of the same struggles that other entrepreneurs have. I probably just have better habits and resources right now than most. I think I have better habits and resources than most as far as protecting my well-being, but that also comes at a cost, right? So I would say, one, I was completely naive. I had no idea what I was getting into when I started my business. I had a, very, very visionary, very, idea driven, and just had this idea and was like, oh, let's figure this out. And quickly realized it was going to be way more than I thought. And it's still the situation where I'm just figuring it out as I go. I didn't have a lot of knowledge about business or anything when I started. And so not only am I having to learn what is needed, but then I also have to do what is needed. And then I also need to plan what is needed next. And I think my experience as a teacher, for 10 years, I taught different subjects. So I had that experience, but it's still very different when it's yours. And whenever no one's there to hold your hand, no one's really there to tell you if it's going to work. You're working with a lot of uncertainty. You're working with through a lot of fumes, especially depending on, I'm just going to say it as it applies to just the normal business experience, what I would assume that other women would experience. It's just hard. There's nothing easy about it. Even when it's your passion, even when it's something you love, it's still hard. It still pushes you in ways that you never even could have imagined being pushed. It still requires overcoming, insurmountable obstacles at times, and most of those obstacles are internal.
Really? That's interesting that you say that, because we did talk about mindset. Mm-hmm. And, tell us, are those obstacles, is that what you mean? Mindset?
Yeah.
Not believing in ourselves or having doubts?
100%. I say all the time, one, I couldn't do this business if it wasn't for what my business is, that I have the sound spot. Like if I was doing another business, I would need the sound spot to get me through it.
So you kind of had an accounting firm or something.
Yes, there is something about when you start a business that's your passion and now it becomes your work and your business. I would caution people away to potentially consider whether it's worth losing that passion, because now it's no longer your outlet, it's your inlet. Right? Like, everyone needs an outlet from what their career is. And I took my outlet and I made it my career.
Now, do you have any regrets about that then?
I don't now.
You did?
I did at a time. There was a time where I really struggled because sound is still my most preferred version of self-care ever. I have tried, now I'm very adventurous when it comes to health and wellness. If one person says that something is good for you, I will try it. I try everything because I'm just obsessed with feeling better. However, nothing that I have ever found has been as it is and is or has been or will be as effective as sound vibration. And my sound baths or my sound sessions at my studio are the best in our area. But there was a time where things were really stressful and I couldn't shut off the owner side. And my husband can't. He can go in and he doesn't talk to anyone. Like if he needs his time, he will shut himself off and like he has his time. And I just can't do that. And so, so there is drawbacks, but in the same sense, I wake up every day feeling so dedicated to my business. I have such a raw and deep dedication. I mean, we talk about our business at 5 a.m., 9 a.m., 12 p.m., 1 p.m., 8 p.m., 10 p.m. like,
And I want to ask you a question. Does your husband still work, or is he now involved in this business too?
he does the business with me too.
So yeah, that's an important distinction, because this isn't like a side hustle. You've really created this into a business that supports your family. And I can't remember, I heard on a different podcast interview that you've won some awards for your business. So it's very successful. But
yeah, we're doing pretty good. It's been amazing. It's been amazing. But we still have so much more to go. We aren't helping everybody. And we're not going to be able to help everybody, but until I feel like I'm helping the most people that I can, I still have a lot further to go. So we're constantly growing. We're constantly learning. My husband is part of the business right now. I will say he's taken the most, because we've had some family things that have happened. He's taking a little bit more of a back seat just right now. So I am kind of running wild on my own, which is fun sometimes because he's the more logical one out of the two of us, and sometimes I don't want to hear his logic. But I do need his logic. But yeah, it's been, that was hard enough too. My husband and I haven't always had the best marriage. We almost were in divorce many times. So to learn how to work together, that was 6 months to a year alone. And if it wasn't for the Sound Spa and us both being, we were both very committed to nervous system regulation, both very committed to doing the inner work that we needed to do. There's no way that we could work together. It was rough in the beginning.
So you're saying, I just want to make sure I understand correctly, that running this business together was the thing that was really so hard in your marriage?
No, we just had a hard marriage. We're very different people. No, we had a really hard marriage for a while. We had some dark years. We had about 5 really dark years in our marriage. That was before the business. We were the best we had ever been. And then we decided, and then I was like, hey, I have this idea, but I don't want to run a business. You want to run a business. So do you want to come help me?
Okay.
And that took about 2 or 3 months to commit. And then he was like, yeah, let's do this. And he had been ideating with me this whole time around. Like the whole time he had been part of that ideation process. But it wasn't until about 6 months in that he was like, okay, let's build this together. Because I was like, I can't do this on my own. And whether that was my own insecurities or whether that's the reality that I don't know. I might have leaned on him for my own insecurities a little bit in the beginning. But we struggled. We had never worked together at all. And so just working with your husband alone is hard enough. So trying to figure out a new business while trying to figure out how to work with my husband required a lot of sound sessions and a lot.
Luckily, you had your own therapy at hand.
Exactly. So, and in each growth, we started subleasing a studio. So each time, like each phase of the Sound Spa has just grown, so much. But we started subleasing, and it was just me, and then it was me and one other woman, and that was hard enough to figure that out. And we kind of laugh and we joke about the way we were at the beginning, and now she's still with me, so we kind of joke about those beginning years. And now I have a team of 7. So now we have 15 sessions. I started with 4 sessions a week, and now we have our own studio with that's fully built out with 15 sessions a week. And each path, like each phase along the way, my nervous system went crazy because that's scary. That's so scary. I mean, the lease sent me on a tizzy because these hundreds and thousands of dollars are going out the door. And I'm like, for someone who had only made, $57,000 at the most in her career before, those are big numbers.
Big risk, of course, risk and reward.
Yeah, we took my entire retirement, and it's, and I say that because for some people, $250,000 going out the door is not a big deal, but for me it was. And so all these steps, my nervous system was just going, it was just crashing out. And then I would have to come back to regulation and I would have to come back and figure it out. And I will say that along my business journey, I have prioritized my health and wellness the entire time. There's been seasons, there's been like, I can push hard for about a week. But that's about it because I can feel it in my body when I'm doing that. And so we would probably be further along if I didn't prioritize my health and wellness, but I wouldn't be further along.
But right. There's a price to pay, a big price to pay, more than the $250,000, which, yes, right. It's a chunk of change. So we are running out of time here. And so this is so fascinating. I love the fact that you're really vulnerable in sharing the fact that this has not been a perfect journey. I mean, you started with a passion that came from your own health struggles where it became you didn't have a choice. And then, of course, your experience with COVID and the kids and the stress, all of the things that, that's a big job for teachers. It's too much for teachers. So would you say that, as we close out, is that what people listening should get from this, that you don't have to be perfect, that's not always easy, it's not always fun, but it's totally worth it? Is that in a nutshell how you would say it, or how would you say it?
Oh, I'd love to keep talking to the person who has that question. Because there is so much behind it. But yeah, I think that it's going to be really hard. And you're not going to be perfect. When you're doing something new, there's going to be discomfort, right? Because that's just the nature of doing something new. I would say if you're going to do that, make sure it's something that you know is worth it. Because that's going to push you through. Every time I thought I was going to fail, every time I was ready to just throw in the towel, and trust me, there was plenty of them where I was just done. And somebody would share their story of how a session changed their life, or they had pain and it all went away, or, this was helping their marriage, or this was helping their kid, or, something. It was like every time there would be a story and I would just be like, oh, okay, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. So I think that having a really strong why and always coming back to your why and not losing sight of your why, because you can lose sight of your why if you get too tied down in the what's and the how's. And so I think that would be my advice for anyone who's looking to do something or maybe struggling with building their business. Maybe they're just feeling really insecure. It's just realizing no matter how pretty everything looks on the outside, there's always shit on the inside.
That's right. We all put up our brave fronts, but behind the scenes. So you are helping people. You're changing the world. You've changed yourself. And like you said, your why makes this worth it. All the sacrifices.
Yeah.
So I encourage you listening, check out Noelle's app, The Sound Spa. We'll put the link in the show notes. And thank you so much for sharing this fascinating journey and advice to all of us that are either running our own business or thinking about running our own businesses. So thank you so much, Noelle, for being on the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Uncopyable Women in Business. If you enjoyed it, please follow, rate, and review the show. And be sure to visit beuncopyable.com/K. Always remember, be uncopyable.